Hello students. Now today we are going to learn geography first chapter, resource and development. Before I start the chapter, I would like to drag your attention for the important thing. Uh, Most of the students I have seen that whenever they read textbook, whenever I say read the textbook, always keep in the mind it's starting from title till end. It means what? You need to read all the boxes. You need to read all the information. You need to read, be careful all about whatever the information is added here also. So what are the sources, activities, boxes? These are some of the compulsory things, because if you see the old board papers, you will find out many questions are asked from this. So children, let's start with the chapter. Now the chapter title, resource and development. So this chapter title tells you the complete theme of the chapter. It means if the country wants to develop, the most important thing is resource. So every country has limited or unlimited resources, limited in some of the aspects, unlimited in other aspects. Now, whenever we say resource, how will you define that? The definition is given to you. I just categorizes or I divided some aspects of this. Resources should be naturally available. They satisfy the needs. They should be technologically accessible. They should be economically feasible and even culturally acceptable. So if you want to define the resources, all the things which are available naturally, they satisfy the human needs, provided they should be technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable. It means if I can't afford anything which cannot be called as resource for me, the things which are not culturally acceptable cannot be resource for anybody also. So all the things which are naturally available, but keep in the mind, all the things which are naturally available cannot be resource for us. A mineral which is found beneath the earth cannot be called as a resource unless and until we human function them or convert them into useful articles. So we can say that the resources actually are the result of human activities. So get example. Now we are using headphone, we are using laptop. So these are all man-made, right? Those are not naturally available, but yes, the material they are made of are available naturally. So keep in the mind they should be naturally available, but yes, resources are the function of human activities also. Now resources categorizes on the basis of various things. We'll just study that one by one. The first, on the basis of origin, the resources are divided into two types, biotic and abiotic. Biotic means simple living beings and abiotic means non-living things. Resources then further categorizes on the basis of exhaustibility. It means once you use it, whether they exhaust or you can use it again and again. So they are divided into two subtypes, renewable and non-renewable. Renewable means the resources which can be reused, recycled and reproduced. Non-renewable, once you use, they get exhausted. The next, on the basis of ownership, resources can be divided into four subtypes: individual, community, national, and international. Individual means those are owned by privately or owned by individual. So I could say that this specs is my individual resource. Community resources, the resources where the entire community has access, like public park, temple, mosque, church. National resources, the resources which belong to nation, within the boundary of the nation, and the nation which have the sea around them, where you should know that the water, which is 22.2 kilometer or 12 nautical miles, also can be categorized as national resources. This water is called as territorial water. There are international resources also, where every country has access to this. You can define this as the oceanic resources beyond 200 nautical miles. They are called as EEZ also, exclusive economic zones. The example that is given that we obtain from Indian Ocean is manganese. We obtain these resources from international resources. The next, on the basis of status of development. Now status of development means they are in which stage of development. हम उसे इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं या नहीं कर सकते हैं, या इस्तेमाल करना शुरू किया है या इस्तेमाल करना बंद कर दिया है, उसके बेसिस पे होता है. The first that is given to you is potential. Potential resources are the resources which are found in a particular region, but we haven't started utilizing it. मतलब हमने इसे इस्तेमाल करना शुरू नहीं किया है. हमें पता है कि वो एक जगह पाए जाते हैं, बट अभी तक हमने उन्हें यूटिलाइज नहीं किया है. द नेक्स्ट दैट इज डेवलप. सिंपल, इसे हमने इस्तेमाल करना शुरू कर दिया है. नाउ वी सर्वेड, वी सेट अप द कंप्लीट मैकेनिज्म, वी स्टार्टेड यूटिलाइजिंग इट. इसे हम डेवलप कहते हैं. द स्टॉक, you can define it as potential to satisfy the need, but human beings don't know the appropriate technology to access. मतलब पोटेंशियल और स्टॉक में थोड़ा सा डिफरेंस है. पोटेंशियल में एक्चुअली हमें सब पता होता है, हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी भी होती है, पर हमने उसे इस्तेमाल करना शुरू नहीं किया होता. लेकिन स्टॉक में क्या होता है, हमें तो पता है, रिसोर्सेज है, बट द मेजर प्रॉब्लम इज एक्चुअली इवन वी डोंट नो हाउ टू यूज इट. Right? We don't have a proper technology to, because as we have seen in definition, all the resources should be technologically accessible, right? जैसे हमें पता है कि water has two strong resources, hydrogen and oxygen, but हम उसे लेबोरेटरी में छोटे पैमाने पर अलग कर सकते हैं, लेकिन हम उन्हें इतने बड़े पैमाने पर अलग नहीं कर सकते कि उसे हम हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन एज ए एनर्जी सोर्स इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं, राइट? तो उन रिसोर्सेज को कहते हैं स्टॉक्स. रिजर्व्स होते हैं जिनको हमने इस्तेमाल करना बंद कर दिया है या फिर लिमिट में रखा है, बिकॉज वी कीप दीज रिसोर्सेज फॉर फ्यूचर. सो दीज आर द फोर ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ स्टेटस ऑफ डेवलपमेंट. फर्स्ट पोटेंशियल, सेकंड डेवलप, थर्ड स्टॉक, एंड फोर रिजर्व्स. नाउ come to the major part, that is development of resource. Development of resource means started using the resources. There are three major challenges whenever we start using resources. Number one, depletion of resources. Obviously, there are some resources which are non-renewable. Those are exhaustible. Once we start using it, they start depleting. They start finishing. The next, society is divided into haves and have-not. This is the game. Because as you could see, the poor and the rich in the society, the people who have the access to resources, they start becoming more rich, but there are the people who don't have access to the resources, so they remain poor. And the last and the most important drawback for the resource development is ecological crisis. And nature start hampering, like depletion of ozone layer, global warming. These are some of the drawbacks or the challenges you could find out, which take place because of resource development. Now, because of this depletion, nowadays the major concept is started growing, that is sustainable development. We have seen this in economics also. If you want to define it, it's as simple as that. Without compromising the present development, resources are kept for the future without hampering the nature. It's called as sustainable development. Now, why sustainable development is important? Many of the resources are non-renewable and exhaustible, as we have discussed. So over-exploitation of these resources will affect the needs of our future generation also, because they will be depleted and nothing will be left for the future. And as we know that we have the only one earth to live up to now. So we need to protect the environment. The environmental pollution has become a major threat to the survival of human beings also in the last some years. So that's why sustainable development is the most important aspect nowadays. The next, we could see that now looking to the sustainability of the environment, the world has started collecting and gathering and coming to the conclusion how the earth to be protected. So the first Earth Summit has taken place in June 1992 at Rio de Janeiro. There are 100 countries who participated, and they signed the Declaration of Global Climatic Change and Biological Diversity. By this, they adopted Agenda 21. Agenda 21, the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, and they aimed for sustainable development. Even they agree to fight environmental change, poverty, diseases, and they wanted that at all level of government, everybody should participate in this. Now this is first Earth Summit and even Agenda 21. Now look into this. If you want the resources to be utilized in a better way, there is a need of resource planning. Now resource planning, why it is important? Because how the resources to be judicially used. To plan out, we require resource planning. And as we know that the country like India, which has a diverse availability of the resources, to bring all the resources at one place and utilize them in a better way, we require resource planning. So these are the two reasons why resource planning is needed and how resource planning is actually executed. What is done in resource planning? In first step, identification and inventory of resources is done, where we identify where the resources are available, how much they are available, what is their quality, what is their quantity, everything. In second step, we start evolving, we start setting up the structure where we start extracting the resources. And the third important aspect of resource planning is that why we extract or consume or we use the resource, obviously for the national development. So the resource development should match with the plans of national development. So the question if asked here, what is resource planning and why resource planning is required and what is resource planning? So these are the 5 things you can just write down with that. Now in this chapter, we are going to discuss the major and the most important resource, that is soil, or you can call it as land. Now before that, why the resource conservation is required? We already discussed this in the last point too, but I'll just specify this again to you. There is enough for everybody's need, but not for anybody's greed. Actually, this is the statement made by Gandhiji. It means that actually if we consume the resources greedily, nothing will be left for the future. So we need to conserve the resources. Overutilization lead to social and economical environmental problems also. And that's why we need to conserve the resources. And as the greedy and selfish exploitation will lead to deflation of resources and nothing will be left for the future also. So that's why conservation of resources is needed. Now we start with the first major resource, that is land. Now if you see the land distribution in India, we have plains 43%, we have 30% mountains and 27% plateau. So India has a quite good balancing land distribution. Now how we utilize this land? We utilize this land for various purposes. The first and the major purpose, that is agriculture. The highest amount of land actually we utilize for agriculture. The second is forest. For environmental balance, there should be a proper utilization and distribution of forest too. There are non-cultivation land too, like pastures and wastelands. Even we use some non-cultivable land for buildings, roads, factories and other purposes. Beside that, there is a fallow land too. Fallow land actually is the land which is kept uncultivated for some particular periods. So this is the land actually can be utilized for agricultural purpose after some years. So this is the land utilization. Now, if we'll just go with land use pattern in India, the major problem with India is, though you can see in the map the complete India, but we just have the 93% land information because 7% of land somewhere is occupied by Pakistan and China. Some part of Jammu Kashmir, some part of Arunachal Pradesh too. Out of a total land, 54% of land is under cultivation in India. There are some states which have 80% of land under cultivation, like Punjab and Haryana. And there are some states which have just 10% of land under cultivation. Those are Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Manipur, and Andaman and Nicobar. According to the Forest Department, we should have 33% of land under forest if you want to maintain the environmental balance. So this is the land use pattern in India. Now in last some years, there are lots of reasons because of that land started degrading. There are some causes we'll discuss here. Number one, land erosion. mining, deforestation, overgrazing, over irrigation, and some industrial waste too. These are some of the reasons. Because of that, the land has degraded. India has more than 130 million hectares of land has degraded. Out of percentage, you could find out water is the major reason for the land degradation. One of the reason actually is land erosion. Now, land erosion, you can easily define that washing away the top layer of soil from one place to another is called as land erosion or soil erosion. Now, as the top layer is washed out, obviously the land will degrade and it cannot be utilized for agriculture purpose. Now, why we need to protect the land? Now, before that, we'll go with types of erosion. There are two types of erosion: gully erosion and sheet erosion. You can see the gully erosion when actually water runs and cuts the deep channel is called as gully erosion, and when the complete layer of the soil is washed away is called as sheet erosion. Now, why and how actually we can conserve the soil? There are various ways we can utilize for land conservation. First and the most important thing, afforestation. Obviously, the land which is open is easily eroded. So we need to cover with trees, because trees hold the soil strongly and it cannot be eroded easily. We need to plan out the proper grazing management. We need to stabilize the sand dunes too, because if the sand is washed away from one place to another, the sand is responsible for degrading the soil. We need to plan out the management of wasteland. We need to discharge and dispose our industrial waste. We need to develop some agriculture techniques too, like counter plowing, terrace farming, strip cropping, and shelter beds. So these are some of the ways we can adopt and conserve the soil. I'll explain all this counter plowing, terrace farming, strip cropping at the end. Now, come to the main part, how the soil is formed, or which are the factors are important for soil formation. There are important factors I noted down. Type of a parent rock, from which type of rock actually soil is formed. That is the important to decide its chemical and physical factors of soil. Temperature is the another important factor. Rainfall, running water, wind and glaciers, activities of decomposers, even human activities, and vegetation. These are some of the important factors to form the soil. Now, by these various factors, the soil is formed, and India is quite lucky to have the diverse soil formation and soils in India. Now, in the next topic, we'll start learning about the soils in India. The major soil is alluvial soil. Now, how it is formed? It is formed by the depositional work of the river, where river carries lots of sand particles, water, soil particles, and they deposit along the bank. By this procedure, alluvial soil is formed. So you could find out the alluvial belt in India, mostly located along the major rivers. As I said, those are found mostly in the river basin. As we move with the rivers, size of the particles vary and categorize according to that, because water needs more time or space to erode the soil. So automatically, the more distance the water covers, the finer the soil particles convert. According to the age, actually, alluvial soil is divided into two types, Bangar and Khadar. Bangar is also called as old alluvial, old alluvial soil, and Khadar is also called as new. So Bangar, as it is old, which is actually the less fertile because it contains more conker nodules. Khadar is the old alluvial, so it is quite fine and fertile because it contains more fine particles. The major acid proportion or the chemical composition of alluvial soils are potash, phosphoric acid, and lime. This soil is ideal for sugarcane, paddy, and wheat. The next soil is black. It's also known as regur soil or black cotton soil. This is made of by the erosion procedure from the basalt rock, which is actually formed after the eruption of lava. The major features of black soils are which hold the moisture for a long time, which is rich in calcium carbonate, magnesium, potash, and lime. Uh, the major characteristics of the soils are it holds the water, I told you, for a long time. Even it develops the cracks in summer. It is very sticky when mixed with water. That's why if you could see that most of the agriculture, pre-agriculture activities are done in summer, so that when the rain comes, only sowing is left out. The major places where this soil is found is Maharashtra, Saurashtra, Madhya Pradesh, some part of Karnataka too. This soil is best for cotton. That's why it is also called as cotton soil. The next types is red and yellow. Red and yellow develops from the crystalline igneous rocks. It is found in the area with low rainfall. It gets its red color due to the diffusion of iron, which has a high content of iron in that. It gets in yellow color when it is occurs in hydrated form, means when it mixes with water, this converts into yellow. The next soil is laterite. Laterite actually it means brick. This is found in the areas with high temperature and heavy rainfall. And due to the high temperature and heavy rainfall, most of the uh, fertile factors or contains washed away. That's why this soil is very low in humus. This soil is good for tea, coffee, and cashew nut. Uh, the next soil that is actually explained to you is arid soil. It is also called as sandy soil. It is brown in color, sandy in structure, and saline in nature. Actually, why it's saline? Because of high temperature, and the most of the moisture is washed away and the salt particles are left out. This soil is found in the areas with high temperature and very low rainfall, which is in high concur proportion. But yes, if this soil is irrigated, can be utilized for agriculture purpose. The last and the most important soil is forest soil. This is found in the hilly and mountainous areas. So the soil which is found in hilly region or hilly areas can be called as forest. This is loamy and silt in slopes and coarse in upper slopes. So which is quite acidic, and due to the acidic characteristics, uh, it is low in humus contents too. It is fertile in lower parts where it is gathered in the valleys, but in the top part of the mountains, this is not at all fertile. So these are the 6 major types are explained to you. Now, before we end this, I just want to explain or repeat some important concept to you. I already told you resources, you can define like that, the things which are naturally available, technologically accessible, economically feasible, and culturally acceptable, and they fulfill our human needs, are called as resource. Sustainable development, I told you, without compromising present development, resources are kept for the future and preserve the nature also. Soil erosion, I told you, denudation or washing away the top layer of the soil by water or air is called as soil erosion. Soil erosion has 2 types, gully erosion and sheet erosion. I already explained to you. This chapter even contains some important concept. I told you I'll explain you at the end. These are some agriculture methods to conserve the soil. Those are explained to you at the end. These are the some important concepts you can just find out. Now, you can see that the first concept is counterplowing. Uh, Counterplowing, actually it's a plowing opposite direction of the soil. You need to plow to the opposite side of the direction, because if you'll go along the direction, the erosion will be done faster. So you need to plow against the direction. The next that is given to you is terrace cultivation. This is generally done in mountainous area where the mountain is cut into steps. It is also called as step farming too. You can see that this is done in western and central part of Himalayas. The next that is it's strip farming. Now, strip farming, actually, you know that the sowing is done into the lines and the queues. In the middle part, actually kept it open. But the area with high wind speed, most of the time what might happen, the wind will be responsible for washing away the topsoil. So what generally is done, this area is covered with the grass. Sometimes the dry grass is used, even sometimes when the grass is allowed to grow in this region. It is called as strip cropping, right? The next is also called as, the next step is shelter beds. This is the another agriculture method you can find out to conserve the soil. Now, what is shelter bed? On the bank of uh, agriculture land, the trees are allowed to grow. So automatically what happens? The speed of the wind is reduced and the soil cannot be carried out from one place to another. This is again done in the areas where the speed of the wind is more. So these are some of the concepts you could find out which are explained to you. Now, if you have any doubt regarding this, you can write down to me. You can just put the question there. I'll try my best to solve these questions. So that's for the day. Thank you.